When word first spread through palace corridors that Kate Middleton would ascend as queen, the reaction among courtiers was a blend of anticipation and curiosity. Although she had long been viewed as a model of composure and empathy within the royal family, few outside her immediate circle anticipated such a decisive turn in her trajectory. Nonetheless, the seeds of this development had been sown through years of meticulous public engagements, charitable projects, and her remarkable ability to balance royal duties with a genuine warmth that connected her to people from all walks of life. Her journey to the throne was as gradual as it was transformative. In the early days, Kate was most visible in her supportive role beside Prince William, joining him at events, championing causes close to their hearts, and steadily accruing goodwill among the British public. Over time, her charitable patronages took on greater depth, focusing on issues like early childhood development, mental health awareness, and the well-being of families struggling under economic pressures. In doing so, she earned a reputation as a hands-on contributor, making surprise visits to community centers and holding private discussions with experts behind the scenes. Each endeavor expanded her standing, building a bridge between venerable royal traditions and the modern aspirations of a nation. When the formal announcement of her ascension arrived, an undercurrent of uncertainty ran through the press. Would she, a figure admired for her understated charm, seamlessly transition into the stately aura that typically accompanies queenship? Yet any doubts soon gave way to cautious optimism. After all, Kate had weathered media scrutiny for over a decade, pushing past the headlines to demonstrate that her sense of responsibility was more than superficial formality. Pundits noted that her leadership style, though less flashy than some earlier royals, possessed a quiet determination capable of steering the monarchy through a new era defined by shifting cultural norms and heightened public scrutiny. Behind palace gates, the transition required Kate to navigate a delicate interplay of protocol and personal convictions. She was briefed on matters ranging from constitutional precedents to foreign diplomatic customs, recognizing that the tone she set early on would influence how the public perceived her reign. According to staff who witnessed this unfolding phase, she committed herself to a rigorous schedule of meetings with senior courtiers, historians, and policy advisors. Even as she absorbed an overwhelming amount of information, she never seemed to lose sight of her personal credo: that the monarchy must, above all else, serve the community it represents. One of her earliest acts as queen was to expand upon her existing philanthropic work. Rather than merely preside over charities, Kate sought to unify them. She initiated collaborative programs that encouraged multiple organizations to share resources and expertise, amplifying their collective impact on mental health and early childhood support. Public response proved enthusiastic, reaffirming her belief that sincere outreach could breathe fresh life into an institution sometimes perceived as static and aloof. Not everything proceeded without complication, of course. Taking a new title also meant adjusting the family's internal balance. For her children, who had grown used to the relative privacy of palace life, each public appearance now arrived with renewed intensity. The everyday interactions they shared with their mother took on a national dimension, caught in the constant spotlight of social media. In private, Kate faced the same emotional tug felt by any parent juggling work and home, only magnified by the expectation that she remain poised before a global audience. Nonetheless, the public seemed to rally around her, finding reassurance in her consistent empathy and unaffected style. In addressing the nation for the first time as queen, Kate appealed to unity, highlighting her determination to sustain the best of royal tradition while championing openness and collective well-being. That message, underpinned by a decade of visible service, resonated widely. Though it remains too soon to declare how history will judge Kate's reign, the early chapters of her ascension paint an image of a monarchy gently, but unmistakably edging toward modernity. As she steps forward, the question that resonates both within the palace and beyond is how far she can carry this evolution. For now, her calm resolve suggests that she is prepared for the difficult balancing act ahead, standing ready to honor the institution's legacy even as she quietly shapes its future. A sense of uneasy hush fell over Buckingham Palace the moment rumors began to swirl that Queen Camilla, once considered an unwavering presence at King Charles's side, was contemplating a step back from royal life. Courtiers who had grown accustomed to her composed demeanor found themselves in disbelief. After all, she had weathered plenty of storms since joining the royal fold. Fierce public criticism in the early years, ceaseless headlines fixated on her personal history, and the unrelenting duty of representing the crown during official engagements across the Commonwealth. Yet behind closed doors, she was battling a growing inner turmoil that no amount of public poise could dispel. In the weeks leading up to her announcement, royal observers noted subtle changes in Camilla's routine. She began canceling smaller appearances, citing exhaustion, and was seen less frequently at high-profile events that she had once handled with quiet confidence. Meanwhile, whispers of emotional strain began to emerge among palace staff, who quietly remarked on late-night discussions between Camilla and her closest advisors. On more than one occasion, lights glowed in her private study well past midnight, lending credence to the idea that she was wrestling with a life-altering decision. When the official statement was finally released, it landed with the force of a thunderclap across Britain and beyond. Few could have predicted that someone who had spent so much time striving to fulfill her duties, especially after a long, complicated path to public acceptance, would suddenly relinquish the crown she had only recently begun to wear as queen consort. Initial reactions ranged from shock and sorrow among her supporters, who had admired her resilience, to skepticism and outright speculation from those who assumed some hidden scandal must lie beneath her seemingly abrupt exit. Insiders, however, painted a different portrait of her motivations, a deep longing for a sense of calm that had eluded her for years. Although she had worked tirelessly to uphold the dignity of the monarchy, the relentless spotlight proved, in the end, a burden too heavy to bear. Even her most steadfast allies acknowledged that the combined weight of public criticism, the demands of court life, and her own personal struggles had become overwhelming. The resignation was, in their view, the ultimate act of self-preservation. King Charles's reaction was a mixture of private heartbreak and public composure. In appearances following Camilla's announcement, he maintained a supportive front, yet his subdued manner suggested that he, too, was grappling with this departure on a profound level. Royal commentators were quick to note that Camilla had been a stabilizing force in his life, providing emotional support through countless challenges. Her absence now raised pressing questions about how he would navigate the uncertain future of the monarchy without her calming influence. In the days that followed, the public's fascination only grew. Discussions centered on whether Camilla's decision signaled a broader shift in royal culture, or simply reflected one individual's threshold for scrutiny and expectation. And while the monarchy had often withstood upheaval before, many wondered if this resignation represented a watershed moment, one that would alter the royal family's trajectory for years, perhaps even decades to come. The moment news broke of Queen Camilla's resignation and Kate Middleton's unexpected ascension to the throne, headlines blazed across newspapers, websites, and social media feeds worldwide. For the public, it was a moment of collective astonishment, tinged with curiosity about the monarchy's sudden pivot. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace, where whispers turned to animated discussions about what this shift might mean. Some expressed sorrow over Camilla's departure, recalling how she had grown into her role despite early skepticism. Others were exhilarated by the idea of a more modern monarch, eagerly speculating on how Kate would shape this new chapter in royal history. In the days that followed, the media seized upon every available detail, spinning theories about the inner workings of the palace and the potential causes behind Camilla's abrupt decision. Tabloid front pages presented a barrage of speculative narratives. Some suggested private health concerns, while others posited that mounting public pressure had become too great. More balanced outlets, however, pointed out her steady devotion to charitable work and willingness to step aside before bitterness could overshadow her legacy. Through it all, the public found itself grappling with a flurry of conflicting opinions, many of which centered on whether Camilla's departure was an act of self-preservation or a turning point for a monarchy in need of evolution. Meanwhile, Kate's face appeared on nearly every screen and publication, accompanied by glowing profiles and retrospective pieces chronicling her journey from commoner to duchess and now queen. Initially, the press adopted a tone of cautious optimism, reminding readers of her long-standing dedication to humanitarian issues, her poised handling of media attention, and her genuine rapport with the public. Social media platforms overflowed with both congratulations and more measured critiques, with hashtag discussions calling for a monarchy that was simultaneously respectful of tradition and in tune with contemporary values. Still, the intense spotlight fueled questions about how Kate would handle scrutiny on a scale few monarchs had ever encountered. Commentators wondered if the very attributes that made her so beloved, her approachability, her dedication to family life, and her focus on causes like early childhood development might be tested under the weight of relentless coverage. Yet, as the initial frenzy died down, popular sentiment seemed to rally around a central theme. Kate's track record indicated she was well equipped to navigate the challenges ahead, particularly if supported by the broader royal household. In a broader sense, the public and media reactions underscored a collective yearning for a monarchy that evolves rather than stands still. Camilla's resignation, while surprising, appeared to signal a readiness for change, and Kate's ascendancy was hailed by many as a chance for renewal. The open question now was whether the royal institution would seize this moment to reimagine its role in public life, or simply fall back on age-old traditions. As the initial excitement settled, the world looked on, keenly aware that whatever came next for this modern-day monarchy would be shaped not only by Kate's values and decisions, but also by the fervent attentions of a global audience. King Charles found himself at a striking crossroads the day Camilla announced her resignation, forcing him to confront a series of interwoven challenges that no one, least of all him, had fully anticipated. Although he had long imagined guiding the monarchy with Camilla by his side, her departure meant his approach needed immediate recalibration. Courtiers sensed a subtle but tangible tension in his demeanor. His calm exterior belied the immense pressure building behind the scenes, where decisions about protocol, public image, and personal relationships demanded urgent attention. One of the earliest obstacles arose from the shifting power dynamic at court. Camilla had been more than a ceremonial figure. She had served as a confidante and stabilizing influence for Charles. With her sudden exit, he faced the task of redistributing responsibilities, both administrative and symbolic. This involved delicate conversations with high-ranking aides, as well as new outlines for how the crown would be represented at various state functions. Gone were the comfortable routines they had developed over decades. In their place came reassignments that threatened to unsettle the equilibrium Charles had worked so hard to maintain. At the same time, the public perception of his leadership faced a renewed test. Critics questioned whether he possessed the fortitude to navigate the monarchy through ongoing cultural shifts without the wife he had relied on for discreet counsel. Though Charles had weathered controversies before his early romance with Camilla, tensions surrounding Diana's legacy, and evolving attitudes toward the monarchy as an institution, this new trial felt uniquely fraught. Some of his most vocal detractors seized the opportunity to cast doubt on his ability to steer the royal family into a modern era, while allies insisted that he merely needed time to adjust to a world now spotlighting Kate's role as queen. Behind closed doors, Charles wrestled with his own emotional response. Losing Camilla's day-to-day partnership meant he no longer had her steady presence to rely on for quick judgments or private reassurance. This left him feeling more exposed than ever to palace intrigues, where even minor misunderstandings could balloon into damaging rumors. While Kate stepped forward to fill certain official duties, Charles recognized that her focus might need to encompass broader social and familial responsibilities, and that in turn could limit the immediate counsel she could offer him. Financial matters, too, became a concern. Although the monarchy's assets and holdings are substantial, Camilla's resignation triggered a re-evaluation of how resources were allocated to support a changing roster of senior royals. Questions arose about whether budgets needed redistribution to accommodate Kate's elevated standing and an expanded role in international visits or philanthropic endeavors. Charles found himself in meetings that covered everything from official residences to charitable grants, all under the unblinking scrutiny of a public increasingly demanding transparency in royal finances. Perhaps the most poignant challenge, however, was the looming weight of history on his shoulders. Charles had always envisioned himself as the monarch who could honor time-tested traditions while guiding the institution toward renewed relevance. Yet with Camilla's departure, that balancing act became more precarious. He now had to appear decisive, compassionate, and forward-thinking, all while dealing with a swirl of speculation about the monarchy's future without the queen consort who had once been a cornerstone of his personal and public life. In the midst of these pressures, Charles made it clear to those closest to him that he intended to persevere, even if the route ahead looked more unpredictable than ever. Palace insiders spoke of evening sessions in his private library, where he pored over notes on constitutional precedent, historical accounts of royal transitions, and the personal records Camilla had left behind. It was in these quiet hours that Charles steeled himself for the next chapter, determined to meet the demands of a kingdom that looked to him, and now to Queen Kate, to guide them through uncharted territory. While the outcome remained uncertain, there was no doubt that how he navigated this chapter would define his reign for years to come. The modern monarchy exists in a world transformed by digital technology, globalized media, and a public with evolving expectations that make traditional notions of royal discretion increasingly difficult to maintain. Where once newspapers and evening broadcasts were the primary vehicles of information, the rise of social media has brought a perpetual news cycle, as well as countless unofficial outlets hungry for even the smallest glimpse behind palace walls. In this climate, no royal moment remains private for long, and every expression, gesture, or remark can be amplified instantly to millions of viewers worldwide. For senior royals like Kate now carrying the title of Queen, the intrusive nature of this new reality has become particularly pressing. Although she had developed strategies for coping with public scrutiny in her years as Duchess of Cambridge. Her ascension means her every move resonates on a wider scale. Commentators dissect every public engagement she undertakes, from the styling of her outfits to the tone of her speeches. Tabloid headlines and online forums pulse with speculation, offering theories about her state of mind and dissecting her family interactions, often with only the thinnest basis in fact. While Kate appears outwardly composed, palace insiders note that the unrelenting coverage demands careful mental resilience. At the same time, the institution she represents grapples with a more fundamental concern, proving its relevance to a public that increasingly questions inherited privilege and demands transparency. It's not only about ceremonial pomp anymore, people expect measurable impact. The monarchy, therefore, attempts to maintain its heritage while demonstrating genuine engagement with contemporary issues, mental health initiatives, environmental advocacy, and community-based charities. These commitments are heartfelt but also serve as markers of evolution, intended to bridge the divide between centuries-old traditions and a global audience impatient for tangible social progress. Yet the drive to adapt is complicated by deep-rooted expectations of regal decorum. Kate and other members of the royal family must avoid appearing too casual or ordinary, lest they be accused of trivializing centuries of history. Conversely, if they cling too tightly to time-honored protocol, they risk appearing remote and out of touch. This balancing act plays out under a spotlight that grows more intense with each passing year, as younger generations raised in the era of influencers and viral videos look for authenticity and a willingness to address real-world challenges head-on. Kate's particular hurdle lies in reconciling her new status with her desire to maintain a semblance of ordinary family life. The strain of raising children in a goldfish bowl environment cannot be overstated. While she works to impart humility and normalcy to her offspring, the reality is that their every milestone is documented and dissected by an audience that feels entitled to witness the making of future monarchs. Behind the palace gates, aides strategize about what aspects of the children's lives can be safely shared, hoping to build a healthy relationship with the public while preserving the family's emotional well-being. Meanwhile, logistical pressures mount. Even routine appearances now demand extensive planning, from outfit coordination to security arrangements, and from carefully worded speeches to behind-the-scenes briefings on complex philanthropic efforts. A single misstep, amplified on social platforms, can spin into a reputational crisis. Advisors must keep Kate informed of shifting public sentiment, which can shift rapidly due to a headline or a trending hashtag. In many ways, it's a race to stay ahead of public opinion in an age when images and stories travel faster than the monarchy can issue a response. Perhaps the largest question hangs over how the royal household will sustain itself over the next decade, given that the pace of technological and social change shows no signs of slowing. Each initiative Kate champions, each new approach King Charles adopts, serves as both an experiment and a statement of intent that the monarchy, while rooted in history, aims to remain a living, breathing institution capable of adjusting to the demands of a modern age. Whether the palace can maintain this delicate balance, honoring tradition on one hand and embracing evolution on the other, will shape the monarchy's public perception more decisively than any coronation ceremony or royal decree. The pressures of modern monarchy, then, are as relentless as they are illuminating, offering a test of resilience that could either galvanize the institution's future or expose its vulnerabilities in the unyielding glare of 21st century scrutiny. As a new generation steps onto the stage of royal life, the future of the monarchy appears poised between venerable tradition and a fast-evolving modern world. Public expectations shaped by social media's immediacy and a global appetite for transparency demands that the royal family continue to adapt, lest it risk being seen as an outdated relic. Younger royals, many of whom have grown up in the spotlight, seem determined to find new ways to balance formal protocol with personal authenticity. Their willingness to engage on pressing social issues, from mental health to sustainability, has already broadened the monarchy's appeal, particularly among younger citizens. Yet the institution's centuries-old customs still hold considerable power. Ceremonial events, state occasions, and the symbolic weight of the crown itself retain a unique ability to unite a nation in moments of celebration and national reflection. As the royals look to the future, they grapple with how best to honor this inherited legacy while taking bold steps toward relevance. Some favor maintaining strict adherence to time-honored rites, arguing these traditions provide a stabilizing force amid societal upheavals. Others envision deeper reform, proposing streamlined practices and more open discourse. Whatever path the family chooses, its fate rests on the delicate art of connection, reinforcing bonds with a public that both cherishes the mystique of royalty and craves approachable, relatable figures. If the royals can master this balancing act, they may well forge a renewed sense of purpose, ensuring their survival in an era of near constant change.